Hi there, and welcome to today's episode, which is one of those unique, different, unexpected, more personal storytelling, kind of sharing your life's journey and your insights kind of an episode. So today we are talking with John Waire. He is a Baltimore-based documentary photographer, family man at heart. He strives to shine a light on the everyday moments that bind us all together. He is a wonderful, interesting human being, and this isn't our typical mental health and well-being, personal development, growth, kind of how to do things, talking modalities, talking practical tips. This is an exploration of a human life and human journey and our humanness and how to connect with each other. And we talk about LinkedIn and we talk about, raising kids and being yourself at work. It is a wonderful, kind, generous, open conversation, and I'm sure you will love it. So please grab a cuppa, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
As normal, here's your quick reminders before we get into the conversation. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit those notification buttons so that you get reminders whenever we upload a new episode. We are really working on growing our reach so that we can reach more people with these beautiful insights and conversations that we have with some amazing guests, like the one that we had today. So please do follow us and just share our episodes. One last thing, we do have a newsletter, and in that newsletter, we do share some stuff from our guests again, but you only get it twice a month. So it's not a bombardment of your newsletter. The link to subscribe to our newsletter is down in the description below. Please do subscribe because there you get some other insights and information from our guests. But now let's carry on with this really wonderful, just open-ended conversation.
Today we have John Ware here with us, and I know John from LinkedIn. And yet, even though I connected with John on LinkedIn, I watch his content, we've interacted on LinkedIn, this is the first time we're speaking in person. And I am curious to know who John is, who, what he thinks, what he does, what he believes in. His content is always thought-provoking, insightful. But there's always a bit more behind the LinkedIn, behind the content, behind the creativity that goes into it. So I'm so excited to have you here, John, today with us. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me here.
I'm very excited. Thank you so much for saying yes. So for our listeners, tell them a little bit about yourself. You know, who you are, what you do, what gets you up in the morning, what fires, lits the fire in you, what gives you life?
That's a good question. I think I'm still trying to figure all that out. But I am first and foremost, I'm a husband to a beautiful wife, Sarah, and we'll be coming up on our 19-year anniversary this year. And we have three amazing kids who are 17, 15, and almost 10. Um, Two dogs. And it's for anyone that knows me or sees me online, they know that my family comes first and foremost. That's sort of my bread and butter, and that's everything that I lean into is related to them. They are definitely the fuel behind everything that I do. Um, I'm also a photographer. I love to tell stories. I love to see people light up. I love to see people either working or doing what fuels them. And when I have that window into their worlds and they open up that space for me, it's magic happens, and I just get to be witness to it, which I feel very fortunate for. I also have a day job. I work for an energy company in downtown Baltimore, and that is probably something that not many people know very much about me, because on LinkedIn I've probably mentioned it maybe two or three times in the years that I've been there. But that's the underlying foundation that financially, health benefits wise here in the States, it's tied to our job. Without that, a lot of things in my life wouldn't be possible. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. And it's true that, on LinkedIn, we can give ourselves whatever kind of labels we want. And I love that LinkedIn has moved far away from being just this virtual CV place to find jobs to really being a community of people where you can create, this brand, this persona, you can showcase your creativity. You don't have to be there for the business reasons, for the work reasons. You can really show up with what you have to say and share with the world. And I do love what you have in your LinkedIn bio, on your LinkedIn profile. It is that you, through photography, that you're a curator of everyday magic. And I love that, photography is connected to magic to you. That you also have there that you're a believer in the wild ordinary. And that's something that really kind of triggers me. It's the wild ordinary, because to me, I've always been the one that I don't like the label normal. I've really always been like, I don't, if ever anyone tells me I'm normal, I'm ordinary, I'm common, that just does not feel like me. I want it to be the weird one, the odd one, the outlier, the someone who just does not fit in the mold. So what does it mean to you, the combination, the wild ordinary?
Well, I like the complexity of it because they seem very opposite of one another. And yeah, most of us are, we wake up and we go through routine days, right? We do the mundane things. We do the taking of kids to school, going to work, all of those things. And that's the repetitive nature of life. But I also see the ability of it that it's all very quite fragile at the same time, that it can go sideways at any moment. I think we kind of wake up and go through the paces and expect the same things to happen, when in reality there, there's a lot of things, like it just, there's so many different directions it can go in, both at our own doing and outside of our doing as well. And I think that's the wildness that's there. Um, and then by saying it too, I'm also inviting in the physical world too, in the digital space and the consumption that we're in, and how we're flooded in life these days. Um, the outside really fuels the inside. And for me, what I've shared with sometimes, well, actually often, but my spirit animal is a fox, and I I'm lucky enough to be exposed to them on a regular basis here in our neighborhood. When I go out in the early morning and I'm walking our dogs, every now and again we'll see one, and I when I see them, I have uh, this huge feeling of luck inside me, and it just gets my heart beating on another level, that something good's going to happen. Something, there's something in the air here, and I, when I see them, good things do happen. It just, it's a byproduct, and I don't know if they plant the seed with me, or it's just something that fuels me. So that sort of wildness that's in there, that's a part of my ordinary, and it's almost, I love extending that to other people, by saying it and by putting it out there. And I'm hoping in some ways that it's helping to fuel people um, in their everyday, and looking at what they're surrounded by, who they're surrounded by, what could happen or what is happening that might be pretty ordinary on some level. But when you look at it, maybe at the end of the day, after you've had that long day or that long week and you're tapped out for whatever reason, but that little something that's there that gives you that little boost that helps to segue you to the next day or the next week or the next month or year.
I love the lesson that comes up through there, or the encouragement, if not the lesson. It's the presence, being present in the moment and be curious and observant, even of the similar patterns of the mundane, of the day to day. Because we often live almost like inside of our heads and inside our inner world, and we're just the outside world is passing us by, and we feel, oh, I've been driving on this road every day. Like, what is there to see? Why am I supposed to be paying attention? I'm just going to be thinking about the work. I'm just going to be obsessed about something happening. We will be living in the future, what's going to happen in the office, or we're living in the past, what just happened in the office. And I love that the way you explain the wild ordinary really brings in the reminder of the importance of being present and paying attention and noticing tiny little details, because that's such a wonderful thing in our life. If we are present and observant and curious, we feel more at ease and at peace, and we feel more energized and curious and creative. So that's a fantastic little lesson.
Yeah, and it really helps to slow things down. It just really brings everything to I don't that's at least that's what it does for me. And it just seems these days that life is very fast. There's a lot coming at us, and yeah, I'm just feeling this calling to I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like, there's different words that come to mind. There's the productivity trap that we should be doing, that we should be ticking boxes and all of these things. But more and more these days for me, I'm leaning away from metrics, away from data. I'm leaning into whatever feels right. I'm letting my heart dictate that. It's literally almost as if my heart is the barometer, right? And the beating of it is, hey, that's the right thing to do. This is the right way to lean. This feels good. I want to sit with this right now, with whatever it is, or with whomever it is. And I'll share that often on LinkedIn. I'll just say, hey, wherever you are, whomever you're with, just lean in. And that's all you need to do within that space, and so many good things can happen. So many good things.
It's funny that you mentioned the heart, because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about very much coming out of our brains and into our heart, and allowing emotion to lead us and not thought. And it's because we can think we need to do something. That's where the shoulding comes in, the shoulding all over yourself. But when you allow heart or the emotion to come in, it can take you in a totally different direction, because it's almost like you are leading yourself then, without the brain telling you where to go. Because we can be very logical about something, like you said, we can tick all those boxes, but the heart isn't interested in ticking boxes. It's interested in almost the human that's carrying the heart, and wants you to go somewhere else. And I love how you brought that up. And for me, it was quite ironic, having heard this talk. It was only a short snippet of the podcast I was listening to, but it was all about coming out of the brain and coming more into our emotions, and more being heart-led as opposed to brain-led. And here you talking about it. I love how things in our life can have this synchronicity of, you hear something and then somebody else is mentioning it, and they connect the two. So for me, thank you so much for that, because this is something that has just been this week. It's ironic, it's just happened this week. One thing I'd love to ask you is, and feel free to say if you don't want to share it or not, but we have had a guest, talking about vision quests and talking about nature and all that. And you've now spoken about your animal guide is a fox. Can you, or would you share a little bit about how did you connect with your animal guide? How did you go down that path? Because like you said, you work in energy, which is quite I gather, a data-driven, environment. And then you connect almost with your, shall I say, your inner John, and have this animal guide that helps you. And I know this is something that some of our listeners would be interested in. I'm interested in is, how do you connect You personally, how did you connect to your animal guide?
Well, that's pretty interesting. I mean, the energy piece is more of I would say out of necessity, right? To make ends meet. So it's sort of that necessary evil that I'm doing what I need to do to provide for my family. I would arguably say that, my life exists in all of the places outside of that building and outside of that function. Everything else is what brings me alive. And, the creative aspect of my life, the photography, is just something I've just always felt that I needed. I needed that outlet to make and connect. The fox aspect of things is just it's a beautiful animal that I'm lucky enough to see on an occasion. And what I love about the fox and how I feel like I'm very similar to it. Photographically, I'm on the edges of things the way I envision foxes are on the edges, and you may or may not see them, right? You may or may not see me as a photographer on the scene because I'm a documentary based photographer. So I'm less of the grip and grin and look here and look at me and what I'm doing. It's not about me. It's about the person or the event or wherever I am. So I'm always on the fringes. I'm always on the edges of the outside looking in and getting closer, similar to the fox. And um, I let curiosity be my guide, similar to the fox. And if I'm interested, I'll stay and I'll move in and I'll get closer. And if I'm disinterested or if I've had my fill, I move on. So we're very similar in that sense. And you know, I can't, I guess I can't prescribe it to other, I don't know if I make other people feel lucky, but I know that fox makes me feel lucky. I mean, I hope, um, I guess, totally outside of that or related to it is just, I love seeing people light up, right? I love helping people move in the direction that they're going in and or just supporting whatever they're doing. Um, that seems to be the direction that I'm focused on these days. And whether the day job and the photography and everything, if they're all kind of coalescing and help enabling me to do that, like that's my driver these days is uh, joy, I guess. In the simplest term, is just seeing people, just seeing that little spark for whatever reason. And that comes in a myriad of ways. It could just be, giving, smiling at someone. It could be sharing their story. If I'm out on LinkedIn, like reposting something that someone said, it could be leaving someone a voice memo. It could be sending a postcard to someone so that they're surprised in the mail that they weren't expecting it, or sending them a book. Just all of these little things, which is something else I'll say, like the little things are the big things, right? Those are the things that matter at the end of the day. And yeah, I find I'm kind of rambling right now. I'm going down a bunch of different paths, but it's sort of that's what lights me up, is seeing that come alive in other people. And yeah, I guess I'll leave it there.
I think it's wonderful to have this, desire and practice and, living a life that you simply do little acts of kindness, little things for other people just because. But as you were talking, talking about photography and then you're sending postcards and book, I was thinking there is this virtual world. We were talking about LinkedIn and sending voice notes and, sharing our content on LinkedIn virtually. And yet there is this physical world of, books and postcards and actually going out of your way to see someone in person and meet someone and spend time with them. How do you see these two worlds colliding? And it could be even from the perspective of photography. Obviously, we're now in a world where everyone has a smartphone and we're taking millions of pictures every single day, and yet do we ever do anything with them? I don't know. We shove them on Instagram to show off to the world, where back in the day we would put them in an album. And I remember how many times my family, we would recycle the albums every single time a family member would come. We would have a family gathering. We would bring out those albums. There would be like wear and tear on them to remember, to commemorate, to share. So I'm curious from your perspective, be it photographer, general human being, like how do you see these two worlds colliding?
Well, on the human level, and let's just say in the LinkedIn world, right? Over a few years, there's several people there that I was corresponding with, and it inspired me to travel to London last year in March. And I went there to meet Ian Sanders, who is someone that I've known for many years and corresponded with, and he's coached me before, and he had some health concerns, and that sort of prompted me in the back of my mind, like, hey, when am I going to do this sort of thing? Hey, I looked at my wife Sarah, and she's like, just go, and then instead we made a trip of it as a family, and my intention was to see him and to see a couple of other people in the quote village that we would say in LinkedIn. And when I went there in March, I saw Ian and I saw his family, and it was such a beautiful thing, to be there with him and to embrace him and his family, and walk through the village where he lives, and to be exposed to that. And so for the digital world to become a reality for this virtual friendship to be physical was just amazing. I mean, I'm almost tearful right now talking about it. So on that same trip, the very next day, I was meeting up with a couple people, and little did I know, when we went to Hampstead Heath to the park, there were other people that flew in from other countries to come together, right? To surprise me and to meet each other for the first time. So there we were in the park. It's raining, it's muddy, and they're singing under this gazebo to me, and I'm walking up going, who? I'm like, holy shit! Roman's there from Liechtenstein, and Yvonne is there from Northern Ireland, and Matthew, and so many others, and Aki from the Netherlands. It was crazy that everybody took the time, spent the money, carved that space out of their life. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I get choked up here just thinking about it. It was the best. It was the best. Um, yeah, just taking a second to soak that in. Um, I think that's the piece of LinkedIn that has made it so powerful for me. And when I get into that space of uh, wanting to turn social media off and that sort of thing, I think about that side, like what it enabled for me, the connections that I have, the people that I care about. Um, I mean, they're real friends. I mean, from the digital space into the real world, and that magic lives, and we love and care for each other and support each other, and try to help each other any which way that we can. Um, and to segue off of that, on the photography front, in the physical space, I don't print anywhere nearly as much as I should. There is nothing like a physical print or the feel of a book in your hand. There's no comparison. Swipe any screen, swipe any memory, and see it come up. You'll see it and you'll feel it, but there's nothing like the feel or the smell of a book, or just holding stuff. I mean, we are, as humans, we are a tactile species, and we've lost a lot of that in the digital space. And I think a lot of the mental and emotional issues of our day are the fact that we've lost that sort of physical connectivity, both with things and with people, with touch, hugs, shaking hands, that sort of stuff. I mean, touch is important, and I think we are living, breathing sort of guinea pigs in this digital age of this ultimate experience of how it's impacting us. And hopefully we're gonna course correct sooner than later.
Thank you for sharing your experience, because you've shown us that there's a possibility to connect the online with the offline, so to speak. And it's amazing how you brought up Roman. I mean, we interviewed him or had him as a guest a couple of weeks ago, a week ago, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, but Lenka is actually going to be meeting him, I think, in the next couple of days, driving through Liechtenstein. So don't blink, Lenka, because you might miss it. But the thing is, it is how we can connect the digital world and bring it back into a physical space. I mean, yes, it's not as effortless as it is just to get onto your keyboard and create a post or send a message or something. It does sometimes require effort. It's, in your case, flying from the States to England, and it's not just muddy and rainy in March. It's like that pretty much all year round. I live in England, so yeah, we've got sun today, but that's like a miracle on its own. But it's also about you having built that community and those connections, is they then flew in to meet you at a central point. And I think that's a very valuable lesson, is bringing back that humanness, that connection. It is more complicated or more expensive or takes more effort, but it's such a worthwhile experience, because that is something that you will most probably remember all your life, but you won't necessarily remember all the content that you've read over the years or the messages or anything. But we remember that book that we've touched. We remember the people we've met at a coffee shop, at a wherever we met at I can't remember what that park is called. I should remember that you went to. And but those are the value. That is the value. It's those physical connections, whether it's with a photograph and sitting there and looking at the photographs, or whether it's holding that book, or whether it's meeting people for the first time who you've known for a long time and building almost like a stronger connection, because now you know what they look like beyond a shoulder and a head. They've got legs, I'm assuming.
The best part about it was everybody was exactly as I imagined they would be. They were the person I came to know and love, right? Either through writing or just through however we were sharing ourselves. We had been sharing our real selves the whole time, right? It wasn't some persona. It wasn't some person I wanted to be like, hey, this is me living and breathing out loud and sharing as as something resonates with me, and us commenting. And I think, the first time I ever talked to Andy Greenhouse on one of his open calls, that was the first thing I said to him. And I've said this so many times before. It was so refreshing to that he was the person that I anticipated that he was. Like, he was that same person that I came to know and love through his writing. It was amazing. And that experience going overseas, the great part about it was my kids got to see that too. They got to experience that, and they're of, the digital age, they're of the device age, that sort of thing. So I love that they got to see that. And my oldest, our daughter, was sort of making fun of me while we were there. Dad has pen pals, like saying this, laughing at me. And, that was, again, it was just the best. And it's planted so many seeds that it's incredible. I mean, I have a travel bug now. I'm itching to find ways to get, there's no question I can reduce costs because I can stay with many of these friends. It's just the carving out the time and the money to pay for the travel to get there. But yeah, I want to travel. I'd like to get over there. I have, every reason in the world to want to spend time with these people that I've come to know and love. And I love just how it's sort of made the world very, very small and accessible. And yeah, it's just it's an amazing feeling. And it just goes to show, I mean, there's just a ton of good people out there. I mean, a ton of good people out there just trying to make their way, you know?
And I think you touched on something really important. It's you, when you met these people for the first time, you mentioned, Andy Greenhouse, again, being a guest. So thank you for mentioning Roman. And they were who you expected them to be. And this is something that is coming more and more. It's about being you online and not, as you said, a facade or who you think you should be. And it's showing that you can be a human online. You can, show what resonates with you and just be the authentic person that you are. Because when you do meet people, it's like you've built that connection and it just carries on. It's not like, hang on a minute, you're not the person that I was expecting because you've not been yourself. I'm not going to say, you outright lied, but you've not been yourself. And I know we see these, these comedies that sitcoms that you watch, and people are going online to date and they show a photo of 20 years ago and then they got to meet. And it's like, how do I do that? I look totally different 20 years ago than I do now. And how, there's this connotation of you have to be the best version of yourself plus. And so, yes, you show pictures of 20 years ago when you were most probably thinner and younger, had less lines on your face or less gray in your hair, or maybe not have a beard in your case, not necessarily my case, but who knows. But the thing is, it's about being who you are, so that when you do meet, you're still that person. And I think you really touched on that, because that's something that you do see online, is you do get these people who are not themselves. They have this persona of who they think they should be in order to, be an influencer or something, but it's not them. It's not them. And so thank you for sharing that, because Lenka and I, we very much are about the human. We all have bad hair days. We have those moments where we just are not feeling our best selves, and that we have those moments where we do feel our best selves. And it's about sharing that. It's about just, this resonates with me because of X, Y, and Z. This doesn't resonate with me. What planet are you people on? Or explain to me a little bit about it. But it's being you. And it's okay if you don't always agree or see things from people's point of view, because that's the great thing about communication, is different perspectives, different thoughts, different ideas. And I think that is part of that connection that you are growing and building within your community, with fellow people online who are building their communities. It's about this being you, being the authentic, unique person, that individual that you are. And you really brought that home with saying, when I met these people, they're exactly who I expected to meet. It is who I was expecting, because that's the person I've got to know. So thank you for really showing that in a real humanistic way.
I think the issue that we have these days is too, when we're out there, is everybody's being offered hacks or just different ways to do things, when And I've said this a lot recently too. We just overthink things. We make things so much more complicated than they need to be. Just be. Whatever that, there's no right or wrong. And for anybody who tells you that, they're trying to sell you something. I mean, whatever it is, but it's just there's no right or wrong. I mean, if you want to be out there, if you're talking about social media or LinkedIn or things like that, honestly, I shied away from LinkedIn for the longest time because I just felt it was too business, too stuffy, too corporate, too cold, too transactional. And, a few years back, probably along the same time, when Andy was getting going, like writing and things like that, I just thought, hey, I'm going to approach this platform the way I would any other space and just be me and just share there's no rhyme or reason, there's no time frame, there's no on Mondays I do this or every so often I do this. I just do what feels natural, and if that means, I'm posting that day, I post. I don't hold myself accountable to having to be out there every day, although I am because I sort of want to be because I have friends there. This is where my friends are sort of meeting up. So I want to see my friends and I want to interact with them and I want to be supportive of them. Um, so, just do what feels right. I mean, and I can't mean that more. And I think the older that we get and the more experiences we have in life, and we realize this is another thing that I say is just that there's a shelf life in all of this, right? I mean, this all goes away one day, right? All of it. And, that includes us. So, I mean, we really have to enjoy ourselves and be cognizant of the time and the place and where we are and make the most of all of the moments, wherever we find ourselves. And, you know, yeah, just keep it simple.
And I think it goes back to the ordinary. It goes back to, the everyday little things, that every day is precious, every moment is precious. So let's really appreciate it, be grateful. I think for me, I've been now on a journey van lifing around Europe for a couple of months. And I was thinking the other day, and I have a LinkedIn post prepared for it whenever I get a chance to actually do a LinkedIn. But for me, it's like on paper, I have failed. Meaning, I had certain goals and expectations of what this journey is going to do for me. And on paper, if I look at, like, I set these goals, I'm going to do these things, I'm going to accomplish these things, I have failed. But when I flip it around, I have not. Because every day I feel incredibly grateful and lucky and present, even if I'm not exercising as much as I wanted to, if I'm not writing as much as I wanted to, if I'm not meditating as much as I wanted to, if all these goals I had of how this life is going to be for me, but yet the immense feeling every single day, no matter where I am, what I do, what limitations I have, the incredible gratitude to like, oh my gosh, this is possible and I'm doing it. But I wanted to go back to when you were talking about coming here to Europe, meeting all these wonderful people, bringing your kids with you. And I think that's something I wanted to touch on. It's that you brought your kids with you to show them the way that social media and your pen pals can actually be real friends, real connections. Because especially the younger generation, we live in online world, and even if we're physically together, we take selfies and we WhatsApp and we send each other memes, and there is this. The more connected options we have, the more ways we can be connected. Often we're just more disconnected. So I love that you do that and showed the younger generations that actually the connectivity in person is important. And yes, you can use the digital tools for that, but there's still the intention of being connected.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it would be a great experience for them. As far as like a once in a I don't know how often we're going to be able to do that, right? So that was part of the impetus to bringing them. Um, it's challenging these days, and with with our kids in particular, um, yeah, I mean, I can remember one time when we went on vacation and our daughter was upset and she walked away from us and she sat down. We were next to a pool and she sat in the lounge chair, and then she just started, she was swiping away. She was looking at something. And I told her, I can remember this so vividly. And I said, the answers aren't there. They're out here. Right. And it's, it's a challenge. Like for any parent that's out there these days, it's really challenging. And I can't tell you that, the purpose of the trip wasn't for my kids to embrace the real world, but I can tell you that they had a lot of fun. And, they met some people that embraced them, like physically, right? Acknowledged them, that they had to look and have conversations with, that I think that was really important. And my virtual friends, right, my pen pals, the people that I met in real life, sort of know my kids because I share so much of my world with everyone. So for them to be embraced in that way, to feel like they some of the barriers of meeting people for the first time were already softened, because of how we were sharing, ahead of time. um, it was great. It was great. Again, it was just it was an amazing experience for all of us, and it's one that, Natalie, that you said, I will remember it forever, for sure. And it's, to me, it's the first of many. I don't know what is out in the future, but I message all of these people daily. Hey, Roman's got his cafe set up, right? I got a picture from him earlier that, hey, open for business. And I said, man, one day, I'm spending the day with you. When you're out there selling coffee, I'm gonna be taking some pictures. I just want to feel that. I want to be in that space. But yeah, it's just a very hopeful sort of feeling that I have inside, because it's, I'm not siloed inside my brain. And I think earlier when we were talking, Natalie, that's one of the things that came up. Like anytime that, um, the world is feeling heavy for me, or if I'm in a dark place or in a bad place, or I'm sort of feeling overwhelmed by everything, it's because I'm caught up here. And it's like, I need to get outside of my head. And, you know, if I get out in nature, or if I interact with someone else, it helps to get me outside of that space. Um, so that's been the benefit of the digital friends, of the physical friends, of the outside world, of nature, of seeing foxes outside, of walking with my dogs, of just, like John, get out of this space, whatever it is. And, it can, life can be overwhelming for everybody. And, sometimes I think we just need to reduce the noise as much as we can, and that just, and to give ourselves some grace too.
And going back to, thinking about the lessons for your kids, one thing that also really struck as you were talking with me, it's the being acknowledged, being seen, being part of this community and seen as equal. And it's an interesting dynamic to bring, younger people, teenagers, into a community of adults and professionals and treat them as equals. And I had an interesting reverse experience during pandemic. Because pre-pandemic, since university, I moved away, I lived in UK. I've almost became my adult self post-university, first career, built and established pretty incredible things back in the UK. And I lived among my peers, and I lived among people who look up to me and who respected me. And coming back to Czech Republic during pandemic and spending time with more family and locals, and out of nowhere, no one treated me with any sort of acknowledgement or respect or capabilities. It was an interesting lesson to be like, a kind of understanding why I left in the first place, that there's something I just, for me, my family, my culture, I just never felt like I fit in Czech Republic. I don't fit in with the environment there. But now hearing you and knowing the people that you were meeting, I can see the different attitude that they would have towards your kids. the showing them, that we are equals, we respect you, you're capable, you're seen, and it's such a valuable message, especially for kids of this, of teenagers of this age, where often, like, you're still, often we give them this, oh, you're just a teenager, you can mess up. Of course you can. But we downgrade them almost because of their hormones and behavior, rather than really lift them to a higher standard of like, yes, you're responsible, capable, incredible, inspiring adult being.
Yeah, what you said about, going home and how you felt there. I feel that way when I go home. Still, I mean, here, still within the state that I live in Maryland. Both of my parents are still alive, right? So when I go see them, I still feel like a kid. That's weird. At 53, like I I don't share myself as much as I'm sharing myself right now with you, right? There are people that see a side of me, and probably what I'm capable of and what sparks me. But when I walk through that door, it's like you see this, I shrink back into this kid again. And my voice shrinks, my composure, like everything. And it's a crazy sort of dynamic, right? I mean, because you went to the UK, and it just sort of like opened you up, and you're just like, wow, I can do anything. I can approach anybody. People are seeing me and hearing me. But that's, it's funny that you say that, just because, I mean, I feel that exact same way still. I've always said, even in having kids, right? There was something about the first time I heard them call me dad, right? All of a sudden I shared that same name, right, with my dad. And I was just like, I'll never really be dad until my dad's gone, right? Because I'm still a son right now. I mean, that's just the way I feel. So it's a wow. You're taking my head in so many different directions right now, but it's just it's a it's it's something how who we're around and the space that we're in can inform like our confidence in ourselves, and just our openness and our vulnerability to like how much of us we're going to show, or how much we feel like we want to show or can show. Because I'm definitely more reserved around family, and meaning family outside of my nest here, meaning everyone else. um I definitely am more like laid back and listen, and I'm just there and noticing and observing, but less interactive. Whereas my wife actually made a point to say that when we were in the UK, she saw a different side of me. Like it brought out this more social, because I'm very introverted, but like because I felt like I knew everybody, it was all the inroads were already there, and we've already discussed so much, and we already knew each other, and then it was just like we were just picking up, like as if we've known each other forever. So it's an amazing dynamic of who we're around, and what we do or don't share of ourselves. I mean, I'm caring less about that the older that I get. Um, but I guess I still feel that it's in me, because of when I go into my parents' house and who I become. And probably on the day job front, when I walk through that building, there's a slight change with me too. I'm not quite the open and vulnerable and sharing everything about myself, even though it's super easy for me to do that in a social setting, because in the social media setting, because I can lob it out in front of people and I can walk away, right? And I don't see a reaction from someone. I don't see a dismissive eyes or an eye roll or their non-engagement or anything. I don't have to face that head on. Um, so yeah, I guess I'm a little weird like that, but maybe we all are.
I think that has resonated a lot with a lot of our listeners is I mean, Lenka knows, and some of our listeners know that I have issues with my family, and I'm actually volunteering to move back to be closer to family. I'll be about 4 hours away, but it is very much you keeping yourself when you're being judged for something that you did at 3 years old, and they still remember you when you were a kid or naughty, and it's like, yep, but I'm not that person anymore. I'm now this person, and this is what I'm planning to do. Yes, but when you were 5, you weren't capable. I'm like, yeah, but I was 5. It's that dynamic, and I ran away from it, and now I'm running towards it. So yeah, I need my head examined on that one. But South Africa is beautiful, but I'm sure this conversation is resonating with a lot of people, because how many times or how often do we almost put on a shield or put on a mask and go to a job or go to that meeting or go visit that family, or and we can lose ourselves. And it's having the strength and the courage to keep ourselves in these situations where we have lost ourselves, if that makes sense. And talking about that, it's a few of our listeners are employed, and they're finding ways that they can have more life in their life, or finding ways to reconnect with themselves. How do you find your balance? Because I mean, you did mention it earlier, you go to work, and then when you leave the office, you shed that person, and your life is your family and what you do out of work. But work is a part of your day. It is a chunk of your life. And how do you find that balance of being you and balancing this job and having your life, so to speak? So you said that you have your life and then you have the job. Is finding that balance. What has worked for you, just to help some of our listeners who are in that place of wanting to create more, but they need to have that security of the job, whether it's for health benefits or financial. Not everybody is in a position to just go self-employed or chuck in the job or whatever, but to have that life, or that more life in one's life, is creating that balance. So what have you done that helps you to be the John at work and the John at home? What's the little bridge in between?
Yeah, the bridge. Yeah, I mean, I'm a work in progress, so I'll just say that again. There's no right or wrong with that. The balance is tough, and when you throw kids into the mix and family and life, it's wild, right? I mean, that is the wild ordinary right there. Just trying to keep it all squared away. Um, Time has been my friend, I guess, in this sense. Um, the day job, being employed in a sense. I mean, I have that. A lot of the people that I interact with are entrepreneurial and doing their own thing, and maybe I had a piece of that. I feel like I've always had one foot in the door, one foot out the door. I have the day job, but then I had photography business, and I had an outlet for those things. So I think having outlets is key to doing that. And I mean, it's taken me many years to sort of open up with the people around me on the day job. I've just tried not to force it, and that it's okay if things aren't the same for whatever reason. I think and that's going to vary for everybody, just depending upon what's happening. I recently, I mean, this is within the last couple of weeks, I interviewed for another position within the company. My boss's job became available, and I didn't prepare for the interview. I didn't want to be canned. I wanted to have an honest conversation, which I sort of fumbled with in the beginning, but then sort of found my sea legs, and I was just me. And probably for the first time, not for the first time, but just in a growing way, just was just me. And there was no performance there. I wasn't trying to say what I knew they might want to hear. I just was just, hey, this is the way it's landing with me, and this is how I'm responding. And when I was done with that interview, when it was over, because it was a panel of 4 people, and I ended the call, I cried. It just, I guess I was, I guess in the simplest way, I guess I was just proud of myself for just doing that. And, it's taken 52 years to get here. So for anybody that's doing this, I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to take that same amount of time. I'm just, I'm a little slow, whatever it is. But I mean, there's really no right or wrong with any of it. I think that's the thing. I think everybody's looking, oh, well, this is what you're doing. This must work for me, that sort of thing. And I think a lot of times the answer is we sort of know it and feel it intuitively, but you know, we're afraid for whatever reason to to trust in ourselves, right? I mean, we might fall down, we might do this, we might fail, or it might not land well, we might not get the job, the thing might not happen. But there's I guess there's a disservice that we do to ourselves when we try to do what other people are doing outside of just following what we're intuitively sort of feeling. And I think that part of it just, it takes time or experience. I don't know. Sometimes it might be a traumatic event in your life that has this. Sometimes it's just life itself. You got to a certain point. Maybe midlife has a lot to do with it as well. I mean, that's where a lot of my LinkedIn friends and I were all of the same sort of age and time frame, and parent or no parent, but just the same thoughts on life, and just, trying to make an impact, and wanting to be happy and wanting to make ends meet. The ultimate answer for all of us might look a little different. But I might fall back on what I said earlier, that we just maybe have to not overthink it, go with what feels right. And that might not look the same every day. I think, we all wake up on one side of the bed or the other, depending upon the given day or month or time of year or anything. But, wherever we find ourselves, it's okay. It's okay. And, we'll get through. And, the benefit that I feel that I have now is I've opened up, a lot of the thoughts and feelings that are swirling around here and here, and I'm sharing them more with other people, so I'm not struggling alone. I'm not chewing on these things, or these larger than life sort of philosophical sort of things, in a silo. So I think if anything, maybe that's the takeaway that I'd say to people, that there are other people out there that are feeling like you, are definitely going through the same things or worse. Surrounding yourself with other people is helpful, as opposed to isolating yourself and feeling like you can do it all by yourself. I'm definitely much more open than I was ever before. Earlier in my life, I'd feel, I got this, I can handle this, whatever it is. I didn't want to embrace help or insight, or just sharing it for, I don't know, probably a myriad of different reasons, or fears, or just, being vulnerable. But, um, you know, being vulnerable, I think is the thing, you know? Yeah. I mean, just sort of, sharing when we sort of share our hearts and where we're at, it's easier to see and to fall into rhythm with other people, and for them to, to feel where you're, and just more times than not, you'll automatically feel the support, and people come swooping in. I mean, that you never would have imagined. I mean, and I mean, you can look at it anywhere. As soon as you see someone that's in distress, I mean, unless you're off by yourself, I mean, you'd never know, right? But as soon as you sort of put yourself out there and people know that there's a need in some way, shape, or form, help will come. It just will. And if it doesn't, just, hey, call me, reach out. I'm here. I'll help any which way that I can. And anybody that knows me knows that that's the burden, that's the cross that I bear, is just, I like feel like I just want to help everybody. And that's probably that's probably the largest thing that I'm carrying in my backpack is, as soon as I know someone else has got something else going on and they're having troubles, and, I tend to carry it with me too. Right or wrong,
Well, wow. Thank you for sharing. And this is something that is really powerful, because recently we've had a few guests, men guests, who have talked about, starting to embrace their emotions, starting to, not shy away from being vulnerable, because it can actually help. And you've reiterated that through, sharing your story and your experiences. And I think this is such a powerful message for our listeners, especially our male listeners, because, like you said, when you're younger, it's like, I got this, I can handle this. But it's becoming more acceptable now that a man can say, I need some help, or, how can I do this, or can you show me the way, or something, and just being open to that vulnerability for asking for help. And, this is something that I think is starting to become more acceptable, because if you think 20-30 years ago, men of your age wouldn't have happened. I know my father, it's just not something that you've done. And my husband is older than me, so therefore he's quite a bit older than you as well. And it is like, no, I got this. It's still that generational thing, whereas I think now it's becoming more acceptable, and younger men now can start to learn and to find their way of the vulnerability and asking for help, and allowing their emotions to guide them, their heart to guide them, and not so much with the brain. So thank you, for sharing that, and giving our male audience permission to be themselves and to be authentic, especially like at interviews or anywhere, or online, or just asking for help if you need it, and giving help if you see somebody asking for it, and just being open. I think that that's so important, and that is all about the humanness, is being open. It's not just you girls be open, oh woman, just you do it and we'll be tough men, we can handle anything. It's not like that anymore. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that will be a real benefit for our male listeners to hear it again, because sometimes we just need to hear over and over and over, and then it's like, yeah, got it for now.
Yeah.
And then I need to be reminded again.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even, it's there's nothing to be said. Sometimes it's just sharing the space together. Sometimes people just need to be heard. There's something about just being there for someone that, sometimes just getting it out. And there's another, there's that humanness, right? But there's someone listening, and, someone may or may not be asking, I might not be asking for input, but just, a set of ears, or another heart to just sort of, to sit in that space with me. And that can be enough as well. So, yeah, it's a good thing.
hop on to our Patreon account to get this episode's amazing and wonderful gold nugget.
For our listeners who've been listening to this conversation, they're thinking, wow, I need to get me some of John. I need to be in his circle. I need to have some of that stuff that he has. Where can people find you?
Well, I'm only active on social media on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and I do still have a website out there, thewarehouse.com, and Ware is spelled like my last name, Waire. So thewarehouse.com. Yeah, those are my two spaces out in the ether.
And obviously we'll put those links in the description below so people can find you and connect with you. And as I would encourage, just, follow John on LinkedIn and see he shares beautiful photographs and, random bits of his day that inspire people, that encourage people. So absolutely love that. Love this conversation. Love getting really more into the essence of, who John is, what he does, what he thinks, what he feels, and kind of talking a lot about what brings you more life in your life. And this is the whole purpose of the podcast. So I'll have one final question, and it is, I feel that we have a good sense of what brings you life in one's life, in your life. Is there a final word of wisdom and encouragement for people to be able to tap into what brings them more life in their life?
There are two magical skills that we can all hone. They don't cost you anything but the time to invest in them. And they're as simple as noticing and listening, right? There's sort of almost the same sort of thing, but by noticing, I'm just visually seeing and noticing. Listening, it's sort of leaning into your senses and seeing and feeling the world around you and letting that be your guide, because the body knows. The body keeps score. I mean, it does. And as soon as you leave the space and you give yourself the time, and you're not trying to, there's no goal in it. Outside of just giving yourself the space, the grace, no right, no wrong, and just looking around. And as soon as you start doing that, again, what I said, like you can't unsee these things that you start seeing, the things that you start noticing, the things that you start hearing. And when you're in the presence of someone else and you can do that for them, that's when the magic really happens. If you come into a conversation with someone and you're there and you're interested in them and you give them that space, only good things can come of it.
Thank you so much. And I'll say that's probably going to be a silver nugget, that one. But thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, sharing your energy, sharing your enthusiasm and your stories about the experiences that you have, and just being with us today. We really appreciate your time and wisdom that you've graced us with. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. So good to be here with you both. Thanks for, offering up the space to make me feel comfortable enough to be myself and to share with you.
And for our listeners, what have you got from this conversation today? We have been all over the place and talking about a job, talking about vulnerability, talking about just experiences and being open and being human. We'd love to know, what aha moments have you got from today? What has that inspired you to connect, inspired you to reach out? We would love to know your thoughts. We'd love to know just what you've got from this episode today. Do connect with myself and Lenka, or write in the comments. We'd love to hear and for you to share with us your experience and what, as I said, what aha you have from this episode. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Here is your reminder about our Patreon, where you get all our really beautiful gold nuggets. And today we had a fantastic gold nugget to share. Subscribe to Patreon. The link is in the description below. Hop into the gold nugget section to access all our wonderful gold nuggets. There is also a free section where you can access snippets from past episodes, as well as some great content with tips, advice, and beautiful and wonderful wisdom. Come and join up and be part of the Into Your Life community. We would love to see you there.